Alongside a global pandemic, for last couple of months, India is struggling with yet another bigger crisis of food security caused by these tiny insects called locusts. Locusts have caused havoc in various parts of country where they have not been seen since 1993. They have devastated crops in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and in parts of Maharashtra. According to Food and Agricultural Organization (FAO) of United States, this locust can eat as much food as 35,000 people in one day. The increased intensity of these locust plagues is related to climate change. But what are these locusts at the first place? Locusts are insects related to grasshoppers and crickets. Among 7,000 species of grasshoppers, only 20 can form gregarious forms. These gregarious grasshoppers are popularly called as locusts. The most infamous is the migratory locust, found in Africa, Asia, and Australia. The one which is creating havoc in India, Middle East, and Northern Africa is known as the desert locust. For a long time and for many generations, these locusts live in solitary phase in the arid and semi-arid regions of Asia, Middle East, and Africa. They feed on green vegetation. They are a common agricultural pest and food source for a large number of birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. They lay eggs in burrows in grounds. Small birds and lizards prey on their young nymphs. All in all, these locusts play a greater ecological role in food system. Everything is fine as long as they live in small numbers. The problem starts when these locusts gets transformed into gregarious form. Their bodies change color, they grow bigger muscles and gather to fly together and migrate in swarms. But what brings this change from a solitary life to a gregarious one? The answer is a series of environmental factors. Locusts generally live in arid and semi-arid regions where the soil is hard or too soft and the rainfall is low and scattered. This condition is generally unsuitable for lay eggs in the soil. This keeps their population in check. So when there is good rainfall, they lay eggs and multiply exponentially, forming large swarms. These locust attacks are not new. These attacks have been happening since the beginning of our existence. The drawing of locusts in caves dates back to 2400 BC, and the earliest record of locust plague is said to have been in 1400 BC. It's a natural phenomena occurring at several intervals of time. So, why should we be worried right now? The current increased frequency and intensity of locust attacks is influenced by human-driven climate change. The first incident happened in 2018, when two cyclones struck Asia and parts of the Rub al Khali Desert became wet, turning into a perfect breeding ground for these locust swarms. For the past couple of years, Africa has encountered floods and unusually long wet seasons. 2019 has the worst floods in last couple of decades, having more than three times the annual rainfall in just 4 days. But why Africa suffered from such a devastating flood in the first place? This is where climate change comes into picture. One of the most influential factors in the situation is the Indian Ocean Dipole, also known as IOD. The IOD is the big temperature gradient from the edge of Africa to the edge of Australia. It affects the surface water of Indian Ocean. There are three phases called positive, neutral, and the negative. The entire process of shifting water temperature is natural, but in 2019 it was extreme. The positive IOD was its strongest on record, with the water temperature difference between Africa and Australia being unusually high. Hence the extreme weather in Africa, but so in Australia. As the world is getting warmer by climate change, so is the Indian Ocean. That's why these floods have become so extreme. The same, and this is the same reason why Australia had history's biggest droughts and wildfires earlier this year. These floods are connected to global rising temperature, which caused fluctuations in Indian Ocean dipole. As the IOD is getting shifting to neutral, it has caused a much needed relief for Africa as well as Australia. But as planet continues to warm, the scientists believe that it will affect the weather phenomena like IOD. So this kind of floods and forest fires will be a new normal, creating more breeding grounds for locusts. Further unusual rain and wind patterns took place in 2019 allowed locusts to migrate and reach to Pakistan by mid-2019. The locust population in India usually decline by November, but the 9 days of heavy rain over the Thar Desert ensured that they remained till Jan 2020. These rain have helped locusts to breed even faster, and the unseasonable rain that we experienced in March and April may have given rise to what we have seen now. The species like locust have economical impact and have threatened one-fifth of Earth's land area and one-tenth of the global population. Over 60 countries in the world are susceptible to these swarms. This causes a serious threat to global food security. In India, as farmers are already suffering from burden of droughts, floods, and the pandemic, locust attacks are certainly gonna increase the agricultural crisis. Reports suggest that these locust attacks is a potential precursor to a bigger and deadlier attack which can take place at the end of June and July, as the monsoon will provide a suitable breeding ground for these locusts to migrate even more faster. The excessive pesticide use to control this locust can havoc the ecosystem. It may end up in water bodies, soil, and also in our food, having a long-term effect on ecosystem. They are causing climate change, harming our ability to feed ourselves, opening to a new crisis every day. As climate change has an impact beyond the borders of countries, now it's high time that we accept the world as a gigantic interconnected system and take together collective efforts to tackle this global disaster.